Hello, everybody, and welcome to the title match of the century against Apple and Microsoft. Joining me, as always, is Jacob Robinson.
Hello.
And Chuck, any thoughts before we get into it?
This is a very, very hard battle. Apple and Microsoft, two huge companies, both known for both of their products. And I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to come down to the wire.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's just get right into round one.
Round one.
All right, here we got Apple at 1.12 and Microsoft at 2.9 on current ratio.
Well, that's a big loss for Apple, considering you want a higher current ratio. Then we'll move on to quick ratio. Apple with a 1.09 and Microsoft with a 2.86. What are your thoughts on that, Trevor?
Well, it's not looking good early. A total sweep of that round for Microsoft. So Apple's going to need to pick it up in round two. But hey, 9 more rounds to go after this one. So it should be fun.
Yeah, anything can happen.
All right, let's get right into the next round. Inventory turnover, Apple at 41.39, Microsoft 15.89, a huge gap there.
Yeah, but that's good for Apple. That's a big makeup on that one. That was a huge point that they definitely needed. Now we got day sales and inventory. Apple with an 8.82 and Microsoft with a 25.33.
Another big gap there.
Another huge gap, but Apple comes out with another win on that one.
That'll knot us up at 2 going into round 3. As just like I said earlier, it's going to be a good one. Fixed assets turnover here. Apple with a 2.02 and Microsoft with a 0.65, and in total asset turnover, Apple with a 0.73 and Microsoft with a 0.43.
That's huge for Apple. Gives them a big win on those.
That's 2 rounds in a row. Apple's taken both sets. Let's get into the next round.
Capital intensity turnover, Apple with a 1.38 and Microsoft with a 2.35. And debt ratio, Apple with a 0.71 and Microsoft with a 0.68. And
really starting to heat up here.
Starting to get tight in this one.
That brings our score 5-3 Apple so far here early on. All right, we're going right into debt equity ratio and equity multiplier. You see the debt equity ratio for Apple is 2.41 and Microsoft 2.13. We're getting a lot closer now in these numbers, unlike round 2 where the numbers you saw a huge gap. Same with equity multiplier, Apple at 3.41 and Microsoft at 3.13. What are your thoughts on that, Chuck?
I mean, it's getting tight here in these battles. Numbers are getting very close compared to the early rounds, and the scores all tied up. So
all knotted up here going into the next round.
It's going to be a tight one.
Times interest earned and profit margin here for the next round. As you can see, there's a bit more of a gap here between the two companies. Apple at a negative 21.88, Microsoft at a negative 12.83 for times interest earned. Profit margin, Apple at a 22.41 and Microsoft at a 15.02.
Yeah, they split this round. I mean, the numbers in both of them are a pretty big gap compared to what we've seen in the last couple rounds. So that's pretty interesting to see. We'll see if the companies tighten it up a little bit more in the next coming rounds.
Alrighty, starting to get in the later part of the rounds here. Basic earnings power and return on equity. You see the numbers pretty close here for basic earnings power. Apple at 19.39 and Microsoft at 13.54. But return on equity, Apple way up there at 55.56 and Microsoft at 20.3. That brings our score 8-6 here as Apple takes both of them. Any thoughts on that, Chuck?
2 big wins for Apple in that category. And I mean, although the basic earnings power was pretty close, the return on equity had a huge gap. It's good. It's looking good for Apple in these late rounds here.
Oh yeah.
Return on assets and market to book. We got in return on assets, Apple with a 16.28, Microsoft with a 6.4, another big gap for Apple. And then a market to book, Apple at a 6.81 and Microsoft at an 8.78, very close. And it's a 9-7. So both companies got a win out of this one. But as I said before, I think we'll see these numbers start to get closer, like the market to book is showing.
This next round's crucial here, as it's 9-7. That means there's only 2 rounds left. So here we go.
Dividend payout, and price to earnings, Apple got a 24.09 and Microsoft at a 42.68 in dividend payout. And then price to earnings, we got Apple at a 14.0 and Microsoft at a 24.21. These are some pretty big gaps from Microsoft and 2 huge points late going into our last round. It gives us a good battle just to see who would win.
Going into the final round, tied up at 9-9. So it all comes down to the Dupont ratio. One of the most important parts of this fight as it looks at profit margin, total asset turnover, equity multiplier, and return on equity.
It shows us who really is the better company out of these two. So these are 4 huge points for either of these companies. So we'll see how this one pans out.
9-9.
So profit margin, we got Apple at a 22.41 and Microsoft at a 15.02. Total asset turnover, we got a 0.73 for Apple and a 0.43 for Microsoft. Equity multiplier, we got a 3.41 for Apple and a 3.13 for Microsoft. And then on return on equity, Apple got a 55.56 and Microsoft a 20.03. That was a huge win for Apple. I mean, coming 3 out of 4 in the last round. And that's all you can really ask for, honestly.
That is the end of our heavyweight battle as Apple takes it all.